Hey everybody, today's question: what if we understood why we feel so inclined to blame others for our situations, and what might happen if we stopped? Let's dig in and find out, shall we? Hey everybody, my name is Jesse. I'm an NAAP certified life coach. Welcome to my Warrior Wednesday series, helping men to train their thinking to become a warrior in their daily life. Join with me in the transformation. So today's topic, I'm going to rely very heavily on research done by a researcher named Brene Brown. She specializes in studying shame and how it affects our ability to show up with authenticity and power. And one of the biggest things she's found is that blame often is a go-to response to shift responsibility or shame away from ourselves. Here's where it gets fun. If we can understand why we feel the need to project or expel frustration and these negative emotions from us, it allows us to take back the power that we're trying to claim back in our lives. So again, let's focus on what is the purpose and function of blame. One example that Brene Brown gives in one of her books, Power of Vulnerability, if you have not read it, I highly recommend finding a copy and reading it. She gives an example of if you're at a party and given in her example she says wine, red wine specifically, in a home with white carpet, and spill it. Nobody's around, nobody sees what happened. What is your immediate response? For a lot of us that fall into the traditional nice guy tendencies or niceness culture defaults, the immediate response is, oh no, I'm a horrible, terrible person because this happened. Did anybody see me? Can I blame somebody else? Can I shift the responsibility? And quite often, the default is, who serves something that's going to stain in a home that has white carpet? That's stupid. How dare they? And then after that, kick in the secondary responses of, okay, am I actually going to take responsibility for this? Or am I going to try and sneak out and disappear into the woodwork and hopefully nobody notices? I'll admit, I've been guilty of the trying to fade into the background. And that, again, goes into the shame, blame, and disappear tendencies that are so rampant in the suburban niceness culture and nice guy syndrome in general. So, how do we stop it? How do we co-opt this tendency of our brain and turn it into something more productive? One is recognize when you're blaming. When you start falling into that tendency, can you catch yourself and recognize, okay, I'm blaming, why? What am I afraid of? Am I worried I'm going to be rejected, as in the party scenario? Am I going to disrupt the party, cause a big upset? Am I going to ruin the host or hostess's evening? Or am I just going to say, hey, there was a spill, I'm worried it's going to stain. Do you have this, that, or the other to try and get it up before it sets in? And in my case, one of the first things I'd be putting down is baking soda and vinegar. So that's kind of the scenario there of what is your response? And a lot of us, the defense mechanism and how it's helped us, why we fell into this habit in the first place, is that we're trying to avoid causing a disturbance. We're trying to avoid getting hurt. We're afraid of get out of my house, how dare you, that's going to cost me for so much money to fix it. I'm going to have to redo the entire room. We're worried that, oh, you're going to be responsible for paying for it all. These are the things that we're afraid of. But how many of us in turn would say, oh, we'll deal with it, don't worry about it, I've been needing to do a deep clean of the carpets anyway, this just gives me an excuse. Let's get what we can up, and then we'll worry about the rest of it later. Most of us, I think, would fall into the second category of, we recognize that it was an accident. It was not intentional. They weren't trying to ruin the evening. We're going to move on. And some of us would fall into how it was my fault. I served the staining prone drink in the party. So the question comes down to, how do we recover from this scenario? How do we stop blaming and shaming ourselves and everybody around us? And I think I hit on it earlier. We need to recognize what we're doing. We need to recognize it as a defensive tactic. We need to recognize it as an ineffective pattern in our lives, in our brains, in our habits. And give ourselves a little bit of grace and reclaim that power. Stand tall and be willing to be vulnerable. Be willing to accept that vulnerability is the key of it. If we're willing to get hurt, if we are willing to have somebody react poorly, does that mean that we're worth less just because somebody else decided to go off the deep end? No. And in that same vein, if somebody is coming to us, we often want to extend the grace and the forgiveness of the circumstance. So why do we expect so much less of others? Are we extending them the courtesy to be able to make a choice themselves? If we disappear into the woodwork, they find it 2 weeks later, it's set in, they can't do anything about it. We're taking their choice away from them. So instead of playing the blame game, instead of taking these actions upon ourselves to hide and disappear, how can we react in a healthier manner? How can we react in a way that's going to be productive, that's going to help others as they go through these situations? Let's take ownership of ourselves. And I think as we do this, we'll find that we show up more intentionally, we show up more powerfully, and ultimately we're serving each other more readily. We're seeing opportunities to help and serve and giving others an opportunity to do the same. Thanks for joining me today. Now, if you think I've gone off the deep end and I'm off the rails, call me out. Let's have a discussion about it. Let's see if we have an opportunity to grow or learn from each other. Otherwise, if you just need some help implementing this, reach out. I'm here for you. I'd love to help. I'd love to give you a hand. Or who do you know who could get value from this video? I invite you to share it with them. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on notifications on future uploads and videos. And let's be the change that we want to see in the world. Join me. One person at a time, let's watch this avalanche begin.